Welcome back, Focus Learners. We've got a fantastic deep dive ahead of us today. We're taking what might look like your standard, run-of-the-mill vocabulary list and completely transforming it into a dynamic, thematic learning experience. Honestly, if you've ever just stared at a list of words and felt like they were instantly slipping right out of your brain, well, you're in the exact right place. In this explainer, we aren't just going to rote memorize. We're going to connect the dots, truly understand the context, and master these concepts for good.
To ground us, let's jump straight to our source material. We are unpacking Lesson 28 from the classic guide, 504 Absolutely Essential Words. Now, we're going to explicitly focus our attention on the 9 powerful words presented right here on this page. But, rather than just reading them off from top to bottom 1 through 9, we're going to be a lot more strategic about it.
And that brings us to a really crucial question. How do we actually talk about extremes, rules, and truths? By asking this, we're introducing what we call a thematic clustering approach. Basically, we are going to group these 9 seemingly random words into logical, conceptual buckets. When your brain sees how these words relate to one another, how they actually form a cohesive narrative, your retention is absolutely going to skyrocket. Okay, let's dive right into this by opening up our very first thematic bucket, rules and repercussions. And we'll kick things off with a word that literally embodies breaking the rules, outlaw. It's got a beautifully multifaceted definition. It functions as a noun, meaning an exile, an outcast, or a criminal, but it's also a verb, meaning to declare something unlawful. It's a word just packed with this tension between rebellion and authority. Let's anchor this word across a few different contexts to really see it in action. So, in the legal realm, Congress might outlaw the sale of certain drugs. Historically speaking, the best-known outlaw of the American West was Jesse James. And then out in nature, an animal that gets cast out by the rest of its pack, that's actually known as an outlaw too. Seeing a single word function across legal, historical, and natural contexts is exactly how you lock it into your long-term memory. Right? So, if an outlaw breaks the rules, who is dictating what's allowed to be seen or heard in the first place? Well, that brings us to our next word, censor. A censor is a person who tells others how they ought to behave, or one who alters works to make them acceptable to some authority. It can also be the verb, the actual act of making those changes. It's all about control, suppression, and molding reality to fit a very strict set of rules. And this brilliantly illustrates how our words interlock. Take this specific quote pulled directly from our source material. Any mention of the former prime minister was outlawed by the censor. The censor is the enforcer here, and their action was to outlaw the information. I mean, this right here is exactly why thematic learning works so well. So, the rules have been established by the censor, and they've been broken by an outlaw. Which naturally leads us to ask, when the dust finally settles, who is actually guilty of the crime? Keep that question in mind for a second as we introduce the final word in our rules and repercussions cluster. The answer, of course, is the culprit. A culprit is an offender. It's the person guilty of a fault or a crime. Now, while an outlaw might be this lifelong rebel living out on the fringes of society, a culprit is simply the specific individual who committed a particular act at a particular time. It's just a fantastic, precise word for pinpointing exactly who is to blame. And a culprit can pop up in situations with entirely different stakes. It could be incredibly low stakes, like, who is the culprit who has eaten all the strawberries? Or it can be a serious police matter involving stolen goods. Or it can even be a thrilling mystery, like the Sherlock Holmes story where the culprit actually turned out to be a snake. Throwing in a surprising reference like that makes applying the word so much more memorable. Moving on to our second theme, uncovering the truth. The foundation of making things clear starts with the word illustrate. And we need to go far beyond just drawing pictures with a pencil here. To illustrate is fundamentally about making concepts clear to others through stories, examples, comparisons, or other means. It's about illuminating an idea so brightly that anyone else can easily grasp it. Notice just how broad the utility of this word is. A biology teacher might use a simple pump to illustrate how the heart works. A massive science museum exhibit might illustrate the uses of atomic energy. You can even use it in literature, noting how certain stories illustrate Mark Twain's serious side. It's just an incredibly versatile tool for explanation. Sometimes, though, truth isn't just about explaining a really complex idea. It's about revealing a closely guarded secret, and that is where we use disclose. It simply and directly means to uncover or to make known. It's that dramatic act of taking something that was previously hidden or covered up and putting it right out in the open for the world to see. For a deeply dramatic example, our source points to one of the most famous betrayals in all of history. Samson, reclining in the arms of Delilah, disclosed that the secret of his strength was in his long hair. The word disclose carries immense weight here. This wasn't just idle chatter. It was a highly consequential revelation of a hidden truth. All right, let's shift into our third and final conceptual bucket for this explainer: extremes and outcomes. Now, when we compare these extreme concepts side by side, it instantly locks their meanings into place. On one side of the spectrum, we have undernourished, meaning not sufficiently fed. And on the absolute opposite end, we have excessive, meaning too much, too great, or extreme. It is the classic battle of profound scarcity versus overwhelming abundance. Looking at a dangerous lack of sustenance, a child might be so undernourished they can hardly walk. But excessive covers overwhelming abundance in so many different ways, from pollution being an excessive price to pay for progress, to the excessive rain in Arizona. It always points to a situation that goes way past the normal limit. Shifting to the outcomes side of our extremes cluster, we look at a positive trajectory with the word promote. To promote is a powerful mechanism for growth. It means to raise in rank or importance, or to help to develop and organize. It's entirely about forward momentum and upward mobility. And look at how beautifully promote applies across entirely different spheres of life. In academics, students are promoted to the next grade. In society at large, having an accurate knowledge of other cultures promotes goodwill. And in business, bankers invest enormous sums of money to promote an idea. In every single case, something is being actively elevated and nurtured. But, we always have to contrast that guided growth with sudden, devastating ruin. And that introduces disaster, which is the starkly negative outcome in this thematic group. A disaster is an event that causes much suffering or loss, a great misfortune. While promote builds things up over time, a disaster tears them down in an instant. This word carries immense historical and natural weight. We talk about violent hurricane winds bringing disaster, or major catastrophes like the San Francisco earthquake and the Chicago fire. But it scales all the way down to localized personal tragedies too, like a coach considering a captain's injury a total disaster for the sports team. So, look at what we've accomplished here. You don't have to memorize a random list of words anymore. You can see exactly how these 9 words logically cluster together. You understand the rule breakers and enforcers with outlaw, censor, and culprit. You know how to uncover the truth by illustrating and disclosing, and you easily grasp the extremes with undernourished, excessive, promote, and disaster. We've built the exact framework your brain needs to hold on to this. We've thoroughly unpacked Lesson 28 today, but the real test happens the moment you step away from this explainer. Which of these 9 essential words are you going to consciously choose to use to upgrade your very next conversation? Don't just let this knowledge sit statically in your mind. Take it and put it into action. Thanks so much for diving in with me today, and I challenge you to be the culprit who promotes brilliant vocabulary wherever you go.